Okay, welcome everybody to Caradoc Housing Corporation meeting on December the 14th. For our roll call, Councillor Frank Kennis is absent with notice. We have some guests in attendance, Marcus and Greg Playford from Devonshire Consulting. Before we approve the agenda, I need a motion to amend the agenda. In the closed section, we need to change item 2 where it says 2 items pursuant to section 239. It will be 3 items. Can I get someone to call in and second? Jeff, all in favor? Thank you. So then we need a motion now for that the Caradoc Housing Corporation meeting agenda be approved as amended. Heather? Jeff, all in favor? Right. Any declaration of pecuniary interests? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to the approval of the meeting minutes of November the 15th. And Heather, Tim, all in favor that the minutes be approved as written? Next, we need a recommendation that the special meeting minutes of November 29th be approved as written. Jeff? Yeah. Heather? All in favor? And then approval of the special meeting minutes of December the 6th be approved as written. And just note, we canceled that meeting, so there actually is no minutes.
I was wondering.
Yeah. So everyone in favor? Okay, Tim and Jeff approved that. All right, financial matters. Our accounts, we have the following items to be received for information. Can I get a motion to receive the accounts items? And that would include the check detail report. That's just the one piece there. Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Heather? All in favor? Okay. Next, we have the financial reports. Need a motion that the financial reports be received for information, and that includes the balance sheet, profit and loss statement, trial balance, and budget versus actual January to November. A motion to receive those, Jeff? Any discussion or questions on those? No? All right, Heather, did you second that motion? All in favor? All right, moving into our discussion. Mount Bridges Affordable Housing Project. Furniture purchase. So we have a motion that the board receive the quote from Lovers at Work Office Furniture for information, and further that the board approve the purchase of the furniture from Lovers at Work Office Furniture. Can I get someone to motion that? Tim?
Yep.
Second, Jeff. Any questions about the quote? Heather?
Not about the quote,
Okay.
but it relates to the quote. We had talked about tables outside.
Oh, lawn, yeah, patio furniture.
Yeah, and because we've expended the budget that was allocated, I just want that out there that in the budget right now, it's not identified because we've spent the budget that was allocated for furniture. But we had talked about getting some outdoor furniture, like tables to put out in the patio. So I just want that on record.
Anybody else? Any comments or questions about the furniture? We did do a scan and looked at some different places. I'll just give you a little bit of background. Heather and I went out and we went to several places. Why we're recommending this one is because the quality of the furniture is commercial grade. So specifically for the tables and the chairs in the common room, as well as the foyer seating. So it's all commercial grade, so hopefully it's going to last. And then also office furniture we got was very basic, was just, a desk and a chair and a filing cabinet for an office person. But again, we thought that this was probably the best option and fairly good value when we compare it to other places for the price. Heather? Yeah.
Just like it noted that we did the office furniture, we got, they have like a warehouse of people that are finished with furniture, that if the furniture's in good condition, it's returned, and that's what we chose for the office. And also, the reason I like this company was we have a good 10-year warranty with them on all the furniture that we purchase. So if something does go wrong, at least we have a fallback.
I've used Lovers a lot of times and never had a problem. And when I did have one problem, there was just no problem with replacing. So, but can I just confirm, the outdoor furniture was never in the budget?
It's not that it was never in the budget, but we expended the budget
Okay.
that had been allocated.
Thanks.
So I guess we would just note that outdoor furniture will have to be dealt with in the spring. Well, you can see if we have some money and what we can find. Okay. All right, any other comments or discussion on that? Okay. Can I just, we had a first and a second, didn't we, Jen? Okay,
Yes.
all in favor of going ahead to purchase that?
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, next on the agenda is the First National Mortgage. And I believe that's why Marcus and Greg are here today, to help us understand where we're at with the First National Mortgage, what's being offered to us, what the costs are gonna be, and what potentially some of our options are. So I'm gonna hand this over to you, Marcus or Greg, who's gonna go?
Well, maybe I'll start. Thank you for letting us attend here, and a lot's happened in the last couple of weeks, so it's your meeting is timely to consider. Just by way of background, I'll do it real quickly, but our involvement in the project started back when the project was being first considered for rapid housing money from CMHC. We did 2 applications to rapid housing, and unfortunately, the project was never selected under that program, which was an all-grant program. We were asked then to look at the CMHC co-investment program, which was a long-term loan directly from the Government of Canada, along with a grant portion. About halfway through that, we made the application to CMHC, and about halfway through that process, we were encouraged by CMHC to switch to a new program. And the new program involved an insured loan from a lender. And then, but it also allowed access to a co-investment grant portion, about 2.1 million, which was a larger grant than would otherwise be possible. So we did that. We secured the grant portion, and then we approached First National regarding a mortgage, and for both construction and long term. So. First a term sheet was secured, it was signed back, and then a commitment letter was provided. The board at the time accepted the commitment letter and proceeded. Now that was almost a year and a half ago, and the interest rate scenario was quite a bit lower at the time. So we were trying to maximize the loan available, so we were kind of pushing the lender was pushing the envelope to try and satisfy the CMHC criteria with the rising interest rates. So it was approved at the most loan that could be supported, but a cap rate of 4.55 was on the end loan was in place. So at that time, the rates were much lower. I think if it had been locked in at that time, it would have been 10 or 20 basis points lower than that. But in the ensuing construction period, rates went up quite substantially. There was a very difficult period when, in order to preserve that 4.55 rate, CHC had to come up with basically cash to get into the project in order to ensure that at completion the project was viable. So that was done. I know that was very difficult for Bill and the board, and I think the municipality stepped in to help. But anyway, it got the building finished and built, and now here we are at the point where the interest rate can be locked in. And so First National has provided the revisions to the commitment letter that provide for the locked-in rate. Since the letter, the rate, just in the past week, in fact, the past day, the rates have come down, and so you're in quite a good scenario in terms of a rate lock. As of this morning, the rate would have been 4.30%. The bonds have come down a little bit even further today, so you're probably closer to 4.25 on the 10-year loan. So we're kind of at a decision point. You're about 7 weeks out from being able to lock the rate. But you know, the earliest lock date is January 29th, because that's one day after the lien period expires, and they can't lock the rate before the lien period expires. So the earliest possible lock date normally would be January 29th or 30th. First National does have an early lock provision, which they've outlined. Basically, it's one basis point a week. So they're in a position now where if you sign back the letter, they could lock the rate in tomorrow. We'd have to find out exactly what the rate is, but I think it's going to be around 4.25 or 4.28, somewhere 2.7, somewhere in that range. You know, there's an advantage to that. You know, there's uncertainty in where the rates are going to move to. You know, they could move up, they could move down. Factors like employment and inflation reduction, both in Canada and the United States, are big factors. So negative economic news can depend depending on what perspective you have. But you know, if it looks like the economy is staying strong, then rates could creep back up again. So you know, there's probably an advantage to setting the rate now. You know, there's still a fair bit of loan left in advance. There's going to be some surplus left over. There's at least $320,000 of contingency that's not spent yet. And we just, moments before the meeting here, got the report, the draw report, and Marcus is working with that, and we'll get that out as soon as the lender's in agreement with it. So that's basically where we're at. You know, the First National commitment is there, and you know, can be moved on. So you know, if any other questions, I think we can try and answer them.
Anybody have any questions for Greg? Tim?
With the rate being at 4.3 or 4.25, is it possible for us not to have to pay the $75,000 buy down because we're under the 4.55 cap?
Well, then the rate would adjust up. The spread would, you know, the spread would need to revert to the original 85 basis points. So the 75,000 was the cost of bringing the rate, the spread down to the 55 basis points.
But we don't need 55 basis points off the spread right now, right? Because we're at, you said 4.25 today, and we don't. Like,
you're asking, can you increase the rate by 30 basis points and not have to pay the 75,000?
That's right.
Yeah, we can ask First National that question.
The one question that had come up before is how much could possibly be recouped by the loan that's been approved, and the uncertainty there is what are the remaining costs to complete, and how much of that will how much in terms of costing remains. The latest report that we had received indicated that the building was 98% complete, with about 11% cost remaining, meaning you're further along than projected, and you're coming in under budget. So the difference between that will be how much comes back to you. We did have First National do a bit of an analysis. They had indicated as much as 800,000 would be repatriated. But again, that's dependent on what the total and final costs are.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg and Marcus. So I'm not a financial wizard. I don't pretend to be, but I just like to put things in simple terms. Am I hearing a bit of good news out of this? And I just got to ask, I wrote some notes, and I have actually, you know, we've, as a board and the community, been so focused on negative, for lack of a better word, but I've actually heard a bit of good news out of that. And if I could reiterate what you said, I think I heard that we're coming in under budget. I heard that, correct? And that obviously the interest rate is looking good or better than it has been. And you use the word repatriated, but if I heard that we're gonna come in under cost and there could be funds coming back to us. So I heard some good news there, and I just I like to focus on that a little bit. So I think those three things I heard. Somebody could comment on it.
Greg or Marcus, could you just
Well,
confirm that the mayor was correct?
Yeah.
That we're not just hearing what we want to hear?
Yeah, sorry about that. I thought I did hear some good news out of that. So it's probably rare you don't hear good news.
When you get involved in a floating rate, believe me, there's a lot of developers, and Tim would know this. 2 months ago, developers were having to write checks in the millions of dollars just in order to access their loan because so much was offside, and so you've reached if you had reached the conclusion of your loan 2 months ago, we'd be having a pretty gloomy scenario here. You'd be looking at having to lock in and with an interest rate that was beyond the ceiling, and maybe even having to put up more money based on where they were. But fortunately, things have worked in your favor. A couple of other things about CMHC insurance. It's important. So this loan is being insured for 50 years. Okay, it's being amortized over 50 years. So the CMHC insurance is good for 50 years. If you take a 10-year term, after year 10, you've got all kinds of options. You can pay down the mortgage. You can potentially switch lenders and transfer the insurance. You could seek to increase if needed. You could withdraw equity for another project. There's lots of options, but as long as the loan is always in the hands of an acceptable party to CMHC, then your insurance is good for 50 years. So you'll always be accessing the best available mortgage rates based on the fact that it's CMHC insured. So that's important. I mean, you do pay an insurance premium in order to get that, but it's very significant. There is we heard there's an alternative available through Infrastructure Ontario. But the short amortization will make a difference in the payments. I sent out a amortization schedule to the group here, and I think your payments come in at $31,000 a month, which is pretty close to what we projected almost 2 years ago when we were first looking at repayable loans. Based on the shorter amortization with Infrastructure Ontario, your payments would be about $10,000 a month more, and it's rental projects aren't like homeowners where you're driven to pay down the mortgage and get that off. The rental housing market, usually sees mortgages are maximized because you don't really have a vacancy rate. You'll always, or vacancy risk. You'll always have this project full. There'll always be a demand. In fact, I predict you'll have a big waiting list pretty soon. That $10,000 a month could be better spent lowering rents, making your rents more affordable, maybe providing, a higher percentage of affordable level rents and a lower number of market rents. So, the lower payments that the long amortization bring does give you some options.
Okay, just,
Yes, Colin?
yeah, sorry, I'm gonna follow up. So the amortization table has 7.749 million. So just in terms of what CMHC was a grant, we don't know that. So that is what the mortgage would be, $7.7 million. That's other than the money we owe the municipality, which is that's it. Am I correct?
That's right. Yeah, there is a CMHC co-investment grant that was provided, untitled. That was $2.1 million.
Right.
But under that, you do have an obligation for 20 years to maintain the affordable, a level of affordable units.
Right, but I guess, Greg, where I was going in terms of our monthly carrying costs, that's it. Other than the money we need to repay the municipality, the only debt, when this is all done, is the $7.7 million. Correct?
Correct. Yes.
Thanks. Greg, I just had a question. Infrastructure Ontario, first I just want to ask the clerk, were they available to come online? Okay. So perhaps, I'm sure you've got experience working with infrastructure. I should ask the question, Greg, have you worked with Infrastructure Ontario? Are you able to answer some of our questions about that?
I don't, I did one Infrastructure Ontario loan probably 12, 15 years ago, and I haven't had much experience since. I know they do a lot of affordable housing, mostly in Toronto and Ottawa, the bigger centers. We haven't had involvement with Infrastructure Ontario loan in southwestern Ontario.
Okay, so we'll just leave that aside. The information, just so people at home listening, that we have so far is that would be that Director Dakin had spoken with them. Caradoc Housing would qualify to apply for an Infrastructure Ontario grant or loan, rather not a grant, a loan. It would be a 30-year, as Greg has pointed out, not 50. And the question I had, which we would have to go back to, is whether we have time. I don't know whether they are 3-6 months processes. We don't have that much time. So that will be one of the concerns I have, even if we were going to explore that. Is it even possible at this late date? But we can look into some of those questions. I guess my question back to you is, if we came up with another funding source, whether it was Infrastructure Ontario or something else, and we decided to no longer proceed with First National, what are our obligations to First National?
Okay, well, first, as far as the rate, you don't have to set the rate right now. You have you could set the rate with First National anytime, up till the end of January, or even extend it a month beyond if needed. But you'll be paying whatever the rate happened to be at that time. You've already paid over half of the CMHC premium, and unless you don't take any of the rest of the money, you'll pay the full CMHC premium, and that's non-refundable. The CMHC application fee is non-refundable. And the First National fee that's been paid on the construction loan is non-refundable. There wouldn't be a First National fee if you don't take the takeout mortgage.
Okay, that's great, thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I just want to echo your comment about this is a business, it's not a residential mortgage, so the hurry or the interest in paying the mortgage off isn't the same as a personal mortgage, and I understand, right? It's a business, so if you keep your money working for you, I'd personally much rather like to do that.
Thank you. Tim?
With the money that we owe the municipality still, we don't have terms to that debt. We're limited to what we can borrow at the 7.75 million from First National on this project. But if need be, could we do a second mortgage or a first mortgage on the other property that Caradoc Housing owns?
Well, we did look at that at one point as a potential source for when interest rates were going beyond the ceiling, and we did discuss with Bill the potential to put a mortgage on the Queen Street property. I did an analysis. The rents are extremely low in that project, so there's probably the ability to get a mortgage of maybe $1 million, or a little bit more, but not much beyond that, until the rents increased, or unless the rents increased. Yeah, there's potentially, I'd say $1 million to maybe $1.3 million in equity in that project, or mortgageable equity.
Very good, thank you.
Heather?
I just want to make sure I understand. So our mortgage is going to be 7.7 million? And on top of that, we owe 3.1 million to the city.
No,
1 point.
We owe 1.1 million to the municipality.
right. Yeah, the way, and I know where you're going, right? So for lack of a better word, Councillor Wilsey is hearing this, he'll go through this monitor at me. And I'm sorry, Greg, but it's the only term I come. The municipality has offered a line of credit. Greg hates that term. So in order to make the payments, the drawdown, the municipality is given this line of credit, which would be paid out of the $7.7 million mortgage.
Still not clear on that.
Yeah.
We went to the city twice for money, right?
Once was for an actual loan for 1.2.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the money we lost from FCM.
Okay.
And the second one was, and I know Tim will understand this better, as will Greg, I'll use the wrong terminology, because of the interest rate and not having enough equity in the project, we didn't have the money to get the drawdowns. But I think I can sum it up properly by saying once the building is complete and we have the mortgage, that money will come out of the mortgage and be given back to the town. So that's the best terminology I can use, is line of credit.
Mr. Playford, is that correct?
I'm sorry, I had a little trouble hearing. What?
I can confirm that that's correct. Yeah, when the interest rate exceeded the ceiling, it impacts what you could possibly borrow at the end of the project. So that's where you had to inject more to offset that difference in loan. Now that interest rates have come back to where it was underwritten, your original loan amount is now replenished back to what it was originally anticipated. So therefore, you're going to get that money back that you had injected as a result of the increase in interest rates.
Right.
Okay, so in essence is what you're saying is we did get 3.1 from the city.
Yeah, yeah, correct, but it's not
Just a sec.
Yeah.
One, so part of the money we owe the city, the board,
Right.
is going to be put into the mortgage to repay them.
Comes out of the mortgage.
Comes out of the
Comes out of the mortgage, yep,
Okay.
Not added to, it's already there.
yeah.
Okay, no, I just want to
I
make
know
sure.
you're right, it's semantics, right, but I hate the word law.
Yeah, it's just for people watching or asking the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Any other questions? Okay, I think at this point, I'm gonna recommend that we just receive this for information. Unless anybody wants to move something, or?
No, just a general comment, and I did hear some good news out of that, and there was a couple of points to clarify. One was, there was some skittishness about the 50-year. I know you don't do that in a private mortgage, but that's important for people to hear, that you make your money work for us. I do like, and thanks for the amortization table, Greg, to see the actual monthly carrying cost. That's important to see as we create our budget, because I went quickly back to Director Dakin's proposed budget, and there's still some gaps in it, but to me, it looks like there's enough room to carry this place, and that's what I saw. Director Dakin had proposed 2 budgets. One was with property taxes in, one was with property taxes out. And when I look at it, we still have to put in the carrying costs of the money from the municipality. I actually have some comfort after this, because I see some daylight. There's been some question about the profitability of this. Unless I totally read everything wrong, I see some daylight there.
I have one more thing. As you brought it up, Colin,
Yeah.
the property tax.
Yes.
I really want us to review and see if we can put in an application to not pay the property taxes on both sites, because that would give us a real break. And I've looked at what other types of businesses have received a tax break, and I think we are more than eligible. So I'd like to see this board go forward to the city.
I also would just note that, I think Mr. Playford, you noted previously that in other projects you're working with other municipalities, most of the time, the property tax is waived, correct?
That's correct, yes, yeah. Yeah, we're doing a project with the County of Oxford, and they waive the taxes for the nonprofit developer. And then almost all of the not-for-profit owned projects in London, certainly all of the newer ones and most of the ones that are owned by multi-property owners are property tax exempt.
Tim?
I agree with that. We, as a board member, I agree that we need to go.
Yeah, and it would be it's because we're a non-for-profit, not just because we're affordable housing.
Yes.
Like,
Well, if we were, if the board wishes to do that, then we would need a request to come from the board to council. We would need a formal motion and a request to do that. And I don't know whether you want to do that now or wait till we have, on the one part of, personally, we need to have some updated budgets, because I think there'll be lots of questions from council and I want to have all the answers for them. So I would rather we get all the updated budgets with these current interest rates and all the costs that we're starting to really become more clear. And then at that point, present that budget, because it needs to come to council anyway to be approved, but ask them for, at that time. I think that might be a more complete way to do it. Heather?
I agree with that, but I'm interested to know when we might see a budget that we could really stand by.
Tim?
I don't really think it matters what our budget is. I think the fact that our mandate is to provide affordable housing and we're a non-for-profit group, we should be able to apply for a property tax exemption regardless of what our budget is. And if we have extra money left over because we're running at a surplus, then we'll be able to create more affordable housing or lower rents. I don't think our budget should impact our request, and I don't think that our loan to the municipality, however it is, should make a difference. That's my take. I see every non-for-profit that I deal with in my private life, business, that they're not paying property taxes on their projects. So I don't think what we're asking for, you know, is out of the realm, and I don't think our budget makes a difference.
Okay, and because this isn't on the agenda,
Yeah.
I think we'll move this item forward to the next meeting to discuss and put a motion forth, and if it's what this board wants, then we'll bring it forth to council. Everybody okay with that?
Works for me.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you very much, Marcus and Greg. I think we've got what we need at this point, and we'll follow up with you shortly. Thanks for joining us today.
Sure.
I just
Okay.
wanted to add one
Yeah.
last thing. You guys were discussing furniture purchases. So just be sure to make sure Bill has those so we can get a copy, so we can get that included in the next draw. Because we've got about maybe one, maybe two draws left.
Okay, I have that in.
Until,
So the quote is sufficient for you, Marcus? We haven't bought it yet.
I'm sorry?
So just the quote you need me to send you? For the
Yeah,
furniture?
well, when the invoice is received, I don't know what the timeline is on the purchase, or when possibly there would be an invoice. Is there a timeline on that, or?
No, we haven't done that yet. We haven't
Okay,
ordered the delivery
okay.
yet.
So if you haven't purchased them yet, then there's no need in providing a quote. If it was an invoice, then we could include it, but,
Okay, I'll follow up with you with that. Tim?
okay,
Thanks.
Are we still having our meeting next week?
great. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye now, thank you. Sorry, Tim, that,
December 20th meeting that was in the calendar?
it's later on in the agenda. Can you hold off on that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Trying to keep us on track. Okay, next we're going to move to in camera. So the board will move into a closed session for the purpose of discussing the following. One item in accordance with council's procedure bylaw to approve in camera meeting minutes, and 3 items pursuant to section 2392B of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual. Can I get someone to, Jeff? Seconded. Heather, all in favor? Okay, we'll move into a closed session. Report on in-camera matters, we're back in open session, and we need a motion that the direction in closed session be approved. Jeff? Colin, all in favor? All right, we will, we have an opportunity now for inquiries or comments by members. Did anybody have anything they wanted to add to discussion today? Colin?
No, I drive by the building almost every day. It looks like a real building. It's looking good. Looking good.
Heather?
I've been asked a lot of questions since the notice went out. And one of them is, how will applicants for affordable be decided? Will they be ranked? People are asking me, well, how will you decide if I can have an apartment or not at the affordable rate? I know it's through the income and stuff, but let's say you have 30 people on that list.
Yeah.
How are we going to determine who gets what?
I think we, as also part of the criteria, we had included whether they were, Mount Bridges or Strathroy-Caradoc, rather, resident or attachment to Strathroy-Caradoc, so that would move somebody as a higher priority. And then also we said, if they have been on the list for 2 years, like they're like number 5 on the list versus or someone who just called this week, then we would rank that also on priority.
When the priority groups, right?
And then, well, obviously, yeah, our priority groups have to be first under our contract with CMHC. But I think those are good questions, and I think until we actually go through the applications, Heather.
No, I'm just getting these type of questions
Yep.
that we need to think about. The other is I'm getting a lot of flack on parking. Huge flack on parking. And also, I'm just a little confused. I know that...
Heather, 1 second. Can you just tell us what the comment is on
Well,
parking?
they want to know where else in Strathroy-Caradoc that people are charged for parking at their apartments. They're curious as to what the rate is going to be. Because they heard one figure and somebody else heard another figure. Excuse me.
For the parking?
For the parking, yeah. Some places don't charge for parking, but if you have 2 cars, then you're charged for the second spot. So there's a lot of unhappiness over the parking. Parking fee, okay?
I would say that if we altered our budget, then that's gonna alter our rents. So the people are gonna be paying for the parking one way or another. It's either because we have to hit our budget regardless. So we're either gonna be charging people for what they're using, like their parking, or we gotta put the rents up to get to the same number. So I think it's a better plan to charge for parking, because then you're paying for what you use. If you have somebody in an affordable unit that doesn't have a car, you're paying for parking that they don't need. At the end of the day, the bank's gonna require us to get to that budget. The budget has parking in it, so if we take the parking out and make it free, then our rents have to increase to offset it.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not entering a discussion that isn't on the agenda here. So if we want to discuss parking, we can put it forward to a new meeting. This section is just comments, but thank you, Heather. And we will note that, and we could, when we get to the budget, we could discuss that a little bit further. Did anybody else have any other inquiries or comments?
Is
Jeff?
9 o'clock meeting tomorrow?
Okay, we need to,
Is that?
oh, yes, the tour for the board will be tomorrow morning, yes, at 9. Okay, now we should discuss scheduled meetings. We have here on the agenda, the next one of our regular meeting would be in mid-January.
I thought it was next week,
20.
the 20th.
Oh, yeah, is it?
It was, but we incorporated today as a regular, because all the reports
All the
were on
reports
it.
came today.
Yeah. It
But we
doesn't
can set a meeting anytime
You
we
can
like.
set one anytime, but because it was the last meeting of the year, we put all of the general stuff
Yes.
together.
Jen did ask me about that, and I said, yeah, put all the reports.
Because
in
people
this
are
one.
also asking about rents.
Yeah, okay. So do we need a finance subcommittee meeting first to look at the budget and to come up with some of these questions and then bring that back to this board? I think that that's what I would recommend. Anybody has any thoughts on how we want to move that ahead?
Well, I just,
Jeff?
two things. How do we make the decision about?
At this table, the decision.
So how about on this, on what we just spent an hour here learning about whether we lock in or not? When does that happen?
We have to put it on an agenda item and have another meeting.
So I like, why don't we just keep our meeting for next Thursday? We should wrap up. Again, get a better idea on the mortgage and come. It'd be nice to have that decision as much as we can.
Heather?
I'd like to see a meeting next week because we have put out there, send your applications in, but we don't have any solid answers for people on certain items like rent, parking, etc. So I think if we're gonna get people in, I'm saying by February 1st, we gotta have a meeting next week to get those things cleared up and finalized. Because people are asking what's the rents?
So do we want to have a meeting on the 20th or the 21st?
I have it in my calendar already for the 21st.
Oh, for the 21st?
For the
Really?
20th?
Yeah, then for the 20th.
Oh, okay.
For the 20th.
It's the 20th.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes, I have it in the 20th at 11:30. Do we want to
Oh,
keep
this
that
is an
one?
old one.
Keep that? That would then,
But are we, what's gonna happen between now and then to give us an agenda?
well, we'll put the,
I can add to the agenda, parking, rents, yeah, like I think we have enough that we can discuss. People need to know what the rents are gonna be, because if they're gonna be too high for them, they're not gonna put an application in. And if we're at the stage where we're accepting applications, we need to be at the stage to say what the rents and any other costs are.
yeah, so we could have that on the agenda as well as make a decision about the financing.
Yes. That'll be two big things to get.
Two big things. If
Two
we
big
get,
things
if we get
to
that
get.
done, then I think we'll be good.
So I'll need all of that to post by the end of today. Just saying, just saying for notice purposes, yes.
Okay.
So just one
Yes, Jeff.
about the rents. Didn't I read somewhere that the new rents were coming out until January or something?
Yeah, so we'll have to set rents with the information we have now for the affordable, well, for both the affordable and market. But the affordable ones, we will be allowed under the legislations, my understanding, to change that in February when the new numbers are released from CMHC, and it would be a difference, I'm understanding, about $5 to $10 per month. So we would have to let people know that this is the rent we're setting now, but when CMHC releases their the amount that we can charge, there probably will be a slight adjustment. That is my understanding, and I can get that clarified and confirmed by CMHC. but
And
I
so
understand
then
that's how it works.
there's no limits on the other rents. I know we're getting a little
Yeah.
deep, but I just need to.
That's right, we can set that market rent, whatever we want. Okay, so then the next meeting is set for Wednesday at 11:30. And can I get a motion to adjourn today? Jeff, Heather, all in favor?
Yes.
Motion adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.